Good morning from Vietnam. Good evening to you, Shelli. Thanks a lot for spending your evening joining our Insight Sharing program and share your amazing stories to our global audience. And on behalf of the listeners around the world, we want to say thank you.
Well, thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to join you. And thank you for reaching out. I'm always excited to talk about the global space ecosystem, and that includes Vietnam and the global world. So this will be a fun conversation.
And Shelly, you came to our country 8 years ago, right? And now you have a new friend, a new family. So if you ever decided to go back to visit Vietnam, we are here. Let us know. So we would be so glad to take you and your family around.
Thank you so much. We look forward to joining you in the future.
Yeah, and since you came to our country already, you have a little taste about our culture, right? It's a great honor if we can have you to share with us a little bit about who you are and the works you are doing. Would you do that first?
Absolutely. Well, it's such a pleasure to join you and your audience again. And I like to say I'm Shelli Brunswick. I'm the CEO and founder of SB Global LLC. And my journey has 4 chapters. So my first chapter is I enlisted in the U.S. Air Force right out of high school because I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't have college money and I wanted to see the world. And the Air Force sent me to Turkey and Germany, and I got to experience new cultures, learn new languages. I learned a profession. I became an HR or personnel specialist, and I was able to go to school at night with tuition assistance and complete my college degree. And that was that first chapter, that enlisted chapter. And by completing my college education by going to school at night, that started the second chapter of my journey. And that was becoming a space acquisition or program management officer. And so that started my 25-year career in the space industry, which was amazing. So I was in the Air Force. I was working on satellites and rockets and ground stations. I was an in-plant rep at a facility building new satellites. I was an educator, a professor at Defense Acquisition University, and I culminated my career in the Air Force working on Capitol Hill, securing the budget for the Air Force. So it was an amazing experience, and that closed out my second chapter of my journey. And then my third chapter opened up, and that was when I became the Chief Operating Officer at Space Foundation. And Space Foundation is a U.S. nonprofit that does business internationally, focused on educational activities, kindergarten through 12th grade, teacher professional development, and entrepreneurial facilitation. So I loved creating and growing new programs, growing our team, growing our revenue, and getting to see the world and bringing new opportunities about the space industry. And then after 9 years at Space Foundation, I decided it was time that I became an entrepreneur. And so this year, in 2024, I launched my own company called SB Global LLC, and it's been an amazing experience so far. It's only been a few months, but I'm already, public speaking, serving on boards, strategic advising, and getting to spend a wonderful time with you. So thank you for inviting me to the show, and I hope you enjoyed hearing about a little bit about my journey.
I absolutely enjoy hearing about your four phase of the journey, right? And it's not fair for us for the amazing journey that you introduced in less than 120 seconds. So we're gonna dive in deeper to understand and to know more about that path. Is that okay with you?
Absolutely.
Okay. So let's travel time. When I was little, I always loved to become an astronaut, Shelley. So wearing the suit and jumping in different planets seems really cool, but life didn't give me anything to do close to being one, right? And you're an expert in the space, the realm of space, innovation and explorations, right? We want to bring you back when you were little, Shelley. What was your dream about your future?
I always dreamed I'd be a business professional. I always played office. Some people played house or Barbies. I played office. I was a business professional working in a bank. So I was not a normal child, I'll say. I did that. Never thought I'd be in the space industry because similar to what you said, back when I was growing up, I really didn't, space existed. It was the shuttle program, but you really had to be in the military. You had to be a test pilot or a STEM professional to come into the space industry. So this was never a possibility for me. So I'm super excited that, as my journey progressed, I actually ended up in the space industry. So no, as a little child, I wanted to be a business leader, and I did. I got an undergraduate degree in business and an MBA. And I guess even today, I'm now a business leader.
I know how beautiful, your childhood dream became true, right? And alongside this amazing journey, we want to explore in each chapter in a very deep, uh, deep dive into each chapter. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
Okay. So when you say that you joined the Air Force right after graduate from high school, right? Back then you have many other options to travel the world to do different things, but you decided to join the Air Force. Why, what triggered that decision from your ends?
Well, when I graduated high school, I didn't really have any college money. I didn't know what I wanted to study or be, and so I wasn't really ready for college. I wanted to see the world, and at that time it was the 80s, and so the best time to see the world was really to join the military. And the Air Force offered a lot of opportunities. So joining the Air Force, I got to get stationed in Turkey and Germany, so I got to travel internationally. I got a profession. I became a personnel specialist or human relations. I was able to go to school at night and get my college degree. So it was an amazing experience, and it met all the requirements that I was really looking for. And lo and behold, I did complete that college education in business, which is what I always pretended to be growing up.
Uh, and so life in the Air Force is busy already. Why? What makes you to decided to go to college at night?
So one of the lessons I learned, and I'll share with your audience, is you should take advantage of every opportunity. And many times opportunities look like work, volunteering for the hard project or going to school at night or on the weekends. But at the end of the day, Warren Buffett has said the best investment you can make is in yourself. And so I went to school at night because I knew I wanted to have a college education. And I ultimately thought I was going to go in the Air Force for 4 years, get out, and then go to college and finish my degree. So I thought by going to school at night and on the weekends, I was just getting a head start in taking those college classes I'd be taking afterwards. Lo and behold, I loved being in the Air Force. I loved the camaraderie and being with other people who put service before self and wanted to help others. I loved being stationed internationally in Turkey and Germany. And so I did 12 years as an enlisted airman, going to school at night before I finally finished my undergraduate degree in business administration.
Beautiful, beautiful. Then go to phase two. Then tell us more about the phase two, how it started.
So I always knew I wanted to become an officer in the Air Force, and that first step was getting your college degree. And so once I had my degree, I applied to become an officer in the Air Force. Now, I will tell you at that time, the Air Force was looking for STEM professionals: science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And guess what? I wasn't one of those. So the first time I applied, I was not selected to become an officer. But, I went ahead and I took my application and I updated it and I tried to reposition myself as something that would be beneficial and bring value to the Air Force. And on the second try, I was selected to become an to become an officer, and I was selected to become a space acquisition officer. Now, I will tell you, I didn't want to do that. I wanted to be an officer, but not a space acquisition officer, because even today, nobody knows what that really means. And back in the 90s, nobody knew what that meant. Nobody knew what space was. And so I wanted to be a personnel officer, right? I was personnel when I was enlisted. So I wanted to continue serving in personnel. And I asked all my mentors, will you help me? Will you help me get reclassified back into personnel? And I'm so fortunate that somebody from the Air Force Personnel Center called and said, Sergeant Brunswick, the Air Force needs you to be a space acquisition officer. And I hung up the phone, I saluted smartly, and that's what I became. And I'm so grateful that I didn't get what I wanted, because otherwise I'd be in personnel and we wouldn't be talking. Instead, I got something exciting and new. The future was unknown. And many times, even today, how many of us are afraid of trying something new? As we see artificial intelligence changing jobs and jobs might go away or new jobs are created, are we afraid of that unknown? And so my experience way back then was I didn't know what that space acquisition officer was. I didn't want to do it. Fortunately, I didn't have a choice, and that created this beautiful career. And then again, going through all the opportunities I had being a space acquisition officer, being a professor at Defense Acquisition University, teaching about space acquisition, working at the Northrop Grumman Space Park facility, the in-plant rep seeing Northrop Grumman building satellites, working at the Space and Missile Systems Center, working on ground station and launch vehicles. And then again, I culminated my career in the Air Force, working on Capitol Hill, securing the budget for the Air Force, really understanding the policy and government affairs. So it was an amazing journey. And again, sharing with your audience, be open to new opportunities. Don't fear the unknown.
Wow, wow. You're very determined looking out for becoming an officer, right? And then wanted to become a personnel officer, but somehow, there's that different plan took you into the space acquisition. And you said that back in the 90s, people don't understand what is the space acquisition. And even now, it's not understanding. So you've been there, you've been amazing, having an amazing journey there. Tell us, what is space acquisition actually doing?
So what space acquisition is actually like the space procurement process. So, or being a space program manager. So I led a team that was creating new programs for the space, for the Air Force at the time. Now it would be Space Force. But those ground stations, those satellites, those launch vehicles, you had contractors that were building them, maybe Lockheed Martin or Northrop Grumman. But you also had the government team. You had financial management and budget and engineers and integration and sustainability. And then as the program manager, you're listening to everybody on your team so you can create the best program. And you always balance it for your people out there who are program managers. We always balance cost, schedule, and performance. So it's a triangle that we're always balancing.
Wow. It sounds a lot more exciting than becoming a HR personnel for the Air Force.
It definitely was that.
Yeah. And then in that, tell us, how did you transfer onto the third chapter, onto Space Foundation?
Absolutely. After serving the Air Force, culminating after 29 years, but I knew it was time to transition. I loved working on Capitol Hill, and I really did not want to go back to being a program manager. Although I loved it, it was exciting. I knew that it was time to end that chapter and start the next. And so I was letting everyone know. So this is great for your audience too. It's always about networking, letting people know what you need, building that network throughout your career so that people can help you. So I was letting people know I'm going to retire from the Air Force. Please keep me in mind if you hear of opportunities. And one day, the chief operating officer job position came across my desk because somebody sent it to me and said, hey, in case you know anybody. Well, I did know somebody, me. But once again, I wasn't sure that was for me, because what is a chief operating officer, right? I'd been in the Air Force 29 years. What's a chief operating officer? And in my mind, I had these blinders kind of on. I was a program manager, or I worked on Capitol Hill, so that makes you government affairs or legislative liaison. And COO wasn't really in the picture. So I kind of looked at it and I said, I wonder if I should apply for this job to be this chief operating officer at Space Foundation. And fortunately, one of my friends I worked with, I talked out loud. She said, you should never disqualify yourself from something you haven't been offered. And so I share with you and your audience, how many times has something come across an opportunity, and because you weren't sure it was right for you, you disqualified yourself from it. You weren't even offered the job, but you just took yourself even out of the race. You didn't even start the race. You just decided, I'm not even going to run the race because I can't win the race. So I share with you and your audience, take those blinders off. Be open to new experiences. Maybe it doesn't look like what you think it should. Maybe it's not exactly what you thought you should do, but give it a try. Don't ever disqualify yourself from something you haven't been offered.
Wow. Who's that friend saying that sentence to you?
Her name was Vanessa. She knows who she is, and we talk about it every time I see her. We always laugh about how she gave me that great advice, because if she hadn't done that, I might have not applied for this job, and once again, we wouldn't be talking then.
I always believe that we have angels happen in our lives, right? And she's happened to be a really good angel that came to your life at the right moment, say the right kind of things for you to set your foot onto the next chapter, onto the space foundation, becoming COO there, right? Yeah. So tell us, after she told you never disqualify yourself, right, from the opportunity, what did you do?
Well, I applied for the job, and fortunately, I was interviewed multiple times because to become a C-level officer, you're going to go through a selection process. So just because I applied, I want to make it clear I didn't get the job just because I applied. I actually had to go through a selection process, multiple interviews, and fortunately, after about 5 months, I was selected to become the next chief operating officer at Space Foundation. So it was a good experience, and I learned a lot through that process. And then I started that third chapter of my journey, becoming the chief operating officer at Space Foundation.
And then what did the Space Foundation actually do?
So the Space Foundation has been in business over 40 years. They are a U.S. nonprofit, but they do business internationally. They are for education. So they do kindergarten through 12th grade programs through their leadership academy. They do teacher professional development. They have a mentoring program, and then they also do entrepreneurial facilitation. And they put on a space symposium, which is one of the global premier space events. So it was an amazing experience to come out of the Air Force and come into this amazing new job. And it wasn't all that when I started 9 years ago. It was much smaller. Over those 9 years, I helped to grow Space Foundation, triple its revenue, triple its workforce, create new programs, products, and services, create a new profit and loss division, grow the organization. Because you really have to think about it. Over the last 9 years, space was really military and civil. It was, government, military, or it was like NASA. And really over the last 10 years, you've seen this big movement towards commercial space, international space, academics in space. And so I got to really be part of that big growth in the space industry and that robustness. So I took my military experience in processes and procedures and networks with NASA and military space, and then I was able to complement it with this civil, international, and commercial space. And so it's been an amazing adventure. As I've seen the space industry grow, Space Foundation also grew.
Beautiful. So you spent 9 years at the Space Foundation and grow the organization up until, yeah, and you decided to leave that amazing journey for the next one, also amazing for sure. So tell us, at that moment of deciding to leave Space Foundation, how do you feel? How did you feel back then?
Well, I knew about a year ago it was time to move on. So what I share with you and your audience is you are the CEO of your career, of your journey, of your life. And everything you do will have a start and an end. And so I always give that advice to entrepreneurs too. They're all excited, they're starting their business. And I always say, what is your exit strategy? Are you going to sell your company? Do you want to do a merger and acquisition? Are you going to be like Elon Musk and be a serial entrepreneur? You always need to know what the exit strategy is, and everything has an ending. And just like when I was in the Air Force working on Capitol Hill and I knew it was time to retire and move on to the next thing, I knew about a year ago that it was time to start transitioning and looking for the next thing. And after discussing it with my husband, I'd always talked about saying, when I leave Space Foundation, I'm going to start my own company. I'm going to be a public speaker. I'm going to serve on boards. And I want to do strategic development, strategy engagement. And he just said, why are you waiting? Why don't you do that now? We went through COVID. How many people did we see get sick and pass away? And, it's time to embrace every moment. And so I knew it was time to transition from Space Foundation, and my husband supported me, my family supported me, and we just said, let's do it. Let's start our own company and let's give it a try. And you know what? If it doesn't work out, that's okay. You know what failure is? Just go with FAIL, first attempt in learning. So every day I'm learning and growing and adapting. And, when we talk in a year, we'll see what happens.
Wow. You say that always have an end in mind, so knowing when to end a chapter is and open a new chapters. And I want to congratulate you for that, because While I talk to a lot of leaders around the world, there's two things that they regret yet doing, and one of them was starting their own business because they've been successfully leading organizations around the world, right? And they can start their own business, and but they have yet found that time or courage or whatever it is for them to start their own. And I always encourage them and say, it's just yet doing that. So one day you're gonna do that, right? So congratulations, Shelly, for going solo and share your amazing journey to a lot of people and your experience to a lot of people because they needed that story. They needed that experience that you have for them. Okay.
Thank you.
So tell us about SB Global LLC. In that company, what is that you're offering for your clients?
Well, one of the things I like to do is be a public speaker. A lot of times people don't understand what the space industry is, or they don't think space is part of their daily life, or how space benefits them. So I like to be the bridge or the advocate for the global space community, bridging the space industry to the rest of the world. The rest of people who don't realize that we're using space technology right now talking. Telecommunications was all developed by the space industry. So right now we're even being able to do this webinar thanks to the space industry. Or that on average you're connecting with a satellite 45 times a day. You just don't know it. So being able to be that bridge that can help explain what the space industry does and how it benefits people. I also, during my career and my journey, I learned a lot of lessons. And so I'm currently working on a book called Lessons Learned. And I'm interviewed over 100 global leaders. And what I've learned is my lessons aren't unique. They're unique to my story in the space industry, but I interviewed people from all over the world in the space industry, not space industry. And these are universal truths. These are universal lessons learned. And so I'm working on that book right now with the publisher. Hopefully we'll get it out this year. And then there'll be a second book that's called The Interstellar Guide to Success.
Wow.
And I just had a Forbes article published on it. And the Interstellar Guide to Success is to help people accomplish their goals and objectives, just like we talked about. It has three main areas. It has awareness, it has access, and it has action. And then the third book I'm writing, since this will be a three-part series, is on leadership. Because what I've learned over my 25 years in the space industry is leadership, from the military, from being the chief operating officer, from other people around the world. I've been a mentor. I've learned from proteges. And I've created this new form of leadership that's needed for today. And it's called Global Transformational Leadership, or GTL. And everyone needs to think about being a GTL, which means you are inspirational, you are authentic, and you are grateful. And so that's my three-part book series I'm working on, as well as public speaking. And then I want to serve on boards where I can help give this great insight strategy to boards that are creating global impact. And then the third area is I am doing some consulting that's related to strategy development, strategic engagement, key introductions, advocacy, and outreach. So three kind of vertical, P&Ls there, but I'm really focused again on that public speaking and the books and workshops, because at this point in my life, I'm thinking about, I call it legacy. It's about how am I creating the next generation of leaders? And I want to be helping to create that next generation of leaders. I want to have a global impact.
You already have global impact already, Shelly. So the question is, you do so many works. How did you find time to do that? Teach us.
Well, I think one is we're talking, it's nighttime here in Colorado. So, when you work for yourself, you work all the time. But even when I worked for Space Foundation, I didn't just go to work and work 8 hours a day. I always was doing extra things. I was being a mentor, volunteering my time to help others. And so you have to prioritize your time, what's important. And you must always remember that you need to take care of yourself, just like a firefighter or on an airplane. You need to put your oxygen mask on before you can help others. So you need to take care of yourself, work out, eat right, take care of your family. And then what are your passions? Like I said, I am doing some strategic consulting, but that is the third priority. My first priority is really those paid speaking events, being able to share the insights, being that global transformational leader, or how space is part of our everyday lives, or motivational, or doing workshops, or writing books. And then again, serving on those paid boards. How can I help with strategy development, implementation, creating that global impact for good? So you just have to prioritize time. What do you really want to do? And I say you have to create like a funnel. You know, some call it the BD funnel, the business development funnel. But, you know, what are your criteria for saying no? That's the other thing. So in addition to knowing what you say yes to, it's probably more important to know what you say no to. And so at this point in my career, you know, when somebody calls me up and they offer me something, you know, I might go, you know, that sounds really interesting, but I'm just not sure that's, you know, in line with the funnel and what I'm focused on. Let me get back to you. Or maybe this other person can help. So you also have to be able to know what are the things you're really passionate about, and then you have to learn to say no. And I will tell you, that is one of the hardest things I'm learning right now because, you know, being in the military, you always are saying yes, we can get this done. Yes, we can do this. And now you're having to really say, I have to make sure I don't overextend myself so that I can complete the obligations I've committed to. So, you know, for all your listeners, whether you're probably a parent or you're running your own business, being able to say no is critical.
It is. And thanks for re-emphasizing that. It's really hard to say no, but when you keep saying yes, you don't have, you know, the capacity to, you know, all the time to do something else that also important, right? So have to be selecting and prioritize what is important to do. I noted here the interesting thing is number three, because you say you seems a lot of things that you are doing, you know, 3 books or, you know, like the 3 pillar of the works you are offering at the moment. So why 3? Why not 5 or 4 or 2, but 3?
Well, I think you can only have so many verticals in a business. I mean, you know, like I said, if I'm focused on public speaking and writing books, that's multiple things. So 3 verticals is probably all you can really handle. And I do have some other consultants I've partnered with. So if I get something and I can't do it, I can send it to them. Or if something's more in line with what I do, they can send it to me. But the book series, I will tell you, it'll probably end up being more than 3 books. Initially, it'll be 3 books, but I already know there'll be a volume 2 for lessons learned because the first volume is going to have 10 lessons learned. And you know what I've learned? There's more than 10 lessons learned in life. So there'll be more books, there'll be more things, but that's where we're going to start with today. You know, you gotta be able to scope the project. That's something you learn in project management. What's the scope of your project? And right now, let's start small.
So the book lesson learned is going to be released this year, you think?
I hope so. The proposal's with the publisher right now, so hopefully we'll negotiate that. And I do believe I could probably get that written by the summer, and then hopefully they could get it out by Christmas. But again, I don't know. You know, I will definitely circle back to you once we have something in writing.
Absolutely. I will follow and then I will promote with you also. So in that 10 lesson learned, if you can pick one to share with us, you know, could you do that first?
Well, I already gave you a couple of them, so how about I give you a new one?
Yes.
And I call it getting up from behind your desk. You know, many times we sit behind our desk and we just type away on the keyboard and we work really hard, and maybe we don't get noticed or we don't get the promotion or we don't get the opportunities and we don't understand why. And what I say is you have to get out from behind your desk. So here's a story. I remember I was a program manager for the Air Force. How did I get from that to working on Capitol Hill as a congressional liaison? You didn't ask that. That's not a linear track. So what happened was I was working in Washington, D.C. as a program manager, and one afternoon there was an organization called the Air Force Association that was celebrating all the acquisition people that worked in the Pentagon in Washington, D.C. And I'm sitting there, and I'm new because I'd only been in this job a few months, and I said, is anybody going to go to this event? And nobody wanted to go. They were like, no, we're just going to go home. And so I'm sitting there going, well, maybe I should go home. But instead, I got up from behind my desk. Nobody went with me. And I went to this reception where all the Air Force acquisition people were being honored and recognized by this organization called the Air Force Association. And again, I didn't know a lot of people because I'd only been stationed there a couple months. But one of the things I had done during that 2 month time is I had volunteered to be the executive assistant for a few weeks for my boss's boss's boss. So my boss's boss's boss, his executive assistant went on vacation and they needed somebody to fill in. So being an executive assistant means you're there before the boss gets there, you're there after the boss leaves. So it's like 12-hour days. Most people don't want to volunteer for it. But remember, I told you that first lesson learned, take advantage of every opportunity. So hard work is an opportunity. So I volunteered. So now here I was going to this reception, and guess who was there? My boss's boss's boss was there. I called him the Godfather. So I don't know if you've seen the movie The Godfather, but he was there. We'll call him the Godfather. So I said hello to the few people I knew. I went over to the Godfather and I said, sir, how are you doing? And he's like, Brunswick, what are you doing? And I was like, oh, sir, I'm waiting for you to move me to the next opportunity. And he was talking to another person that was standing there, and that person was telling him, hey, sir, I got an assignment. I'm leaving. And this was the person who worked on Capitol Hill for our organization. So the Godfather looked at this person and looked at me and looked at this person, and he goes, Brunswick, how would you like to be a legislative liaison?
Wow.
Now, I will highlight, I didn't get the job. What I got was an opportunity to interview. And that's what you're doing. You're getting out from behind your desk. You're volunteering for those hard projects. You're taking advantage of those opportunities. And then you're getting the opportunity for something new. So I did. I interviewed for the job. I talked to the person who'd been in the position. He was working on the Senate side of the U.S. Capitol. He gave me some great insight. I practiced for my interview. I interviewed and I got the job. And that's how I transitioned from being a program manager into being a congressional liaison, was I got out from behind my desk. It wasn't that I didn't deserve the job, and I didn't just get the job, but because I had volunteered for the hard project, being that executive assistant for a couple of weeks, and I got out from behind my desk, and my boss's boss's boss saw me, remembered me, he gave me the opportunity to interview. Now, had I not done a good job, somebody else would have had the opportunity, but I nailed it. They told me I was the best interview they ever had because I prepared, and I got the job, and that changed the course of my career in the Air Force to working on Capitol Hill then. So that's something that'll be in the book as well, getting out from behind your desk. Life is more than just sitting behind your desk typing away at emails. You got to get out. You got to build your networks. You got to find people that are like-minded. You have to find those opportunities. You have to take on extra projects. You have to go to school at night or on the weekends. And you know what? That hard work opens new doors.
You are very intentional in what you are doing. And the word I noted down here is volunteering. Okay, so volunteer. A lot of people, when they see volunteer, their time to do something, it means that it's a lack of time for doing something else, for personal. But you volunteer your time to do something, that really have to change the territory of your career, your path. So who inspired you to be a person always trying to volunteer your time to do something that beyond your that move you up?
So I will say it starts with my mother and my grandmother. So both of them are very inspirational. I'll start with my grandmother, Rose. She passed away in 23, so we miss her deeply. She was a matriarch of our family. Thank you. But, her family immigrated to the U.S. from Poland, and her and my grandfather were farmers. They were entrepreneurs. They ran a tavern, a tavern in the U.S. like a bar. And then they also, they ran a farm. My grandfather started his own insurance company. So my grandparents and my grandmother were very entrepreneurial, very feisty. My grandmother was very feisty. And then my mom was also, she got out there. She worked in the manufacturing sector. She worked in a tire manufacturing company. She was a part of the management team. And this was during a time when, women were not really part of the manufacturing sector. There's still really not a lot of women in manufacturing. So my mom was a trailblazer. My grandmother were trailblazers, being entrepreneurial, being managers in manufacturing, and they always taught me that hard work and dedication, you can get to where you want to be. And so I have to say my grandmother Rose and my mom inspired me. They always supported me. They always encouraged me. And, you just keep working hard. I'm sure your parents are similar. You just keep trying.
What's your mom's name?
My mom's name is Betty.
Betty. Okay. So please tell Betty that she and Rose are really amazing people that, that inspired you to become a great one. And tell her that we love her from Vietnam. We want to give a big hug and kisses to her, okay?
I will. Thank you so much.
I have two last questions for you in this conversation. And actually, I have three. So I'll start first by bring you back to time again, one last time. If you had a chance to talk to yourself back in the high school time when you first graduated from high school, what message would Shelly talk to the younger Shelly back then?
I would say similar to what I'm telling the Shelly today is it'll be okay. It'll work out. Trust the process.
Trust.
Many times we stress about things, we worry about things that ultimately have little to no impact on us. And so I think if I could go back in time to say, trust the process, it's going to be okay. And it turned out better than I ever imagined. I never thought you and I would be talking or that I'd be in the space industry or have this wonderful career. Remember, I joined the Air Force right out of high school to go to be in the Air Force for 4 years, get some college money, separate, go to college, and I don't know what would have happened. So this has turned out better than I could have ever imagined.
So it's okay. Trust the process, right?
You have to trust the process. You have to work. You have to, you got to do all the things I shared, and then trust the process.
Yep, trust the process. The next question is about my wife and I personal pursuit. Okay, so we believe that our thinking capability this day is diminishing because of a lot of reasons. So every time that we have a chance to talk to amazing people, a great thinker like you are, we ask this question, and hopefully that if listeners around the world can listen to the answers, they can shape their thinking and they can apply something. So how have you been improve your ability to think and expanding your ability to think over the years, Shelly?
So I think it's really important that we're very deliberate in what we do. And what I mean by that is sometimes we can be very complacent and you do the same thing over and over, but you're not really growing and developing and challenging yourself. I mean, and that is, it would have been easy to stay at Space Foundation and just keep doing the same old thing. But I think we as human beings, just like you've challenged yourself by creating this podcast, by meeting new people, by learning new things. So I think what we all need to do as humanity is to continue to challenge ourselves, to continue to grow and learn, because think about what's on the horizon. Artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is going to change everything. It's going to change how we do things. It's going to change jobs. It's going to eliminate jobs. It's going to create new jobs. It's going to change, I now have AI that I'm using in my new company, SB Global, that's helping me take notes and synthesize my notes for my book and everything. So we have to continue to grow and learn. We have to continue to challenge ourselves. We can't get complacent, because I think when you get complacent, that's when your brain stops thinking. And your brain, it's not a muscle, but it's like a muscle. It has to be used. It has to be challenged. And that is one way to do it. And I think you've demonstrated how you've challenged your brain by doing all these interviews.
Thank you for sharing that. Thank you very much for the kind words also, Shelly. So the last question is about the future. So we knew when you were little, you like to play business, become a business person, right? And taking the journey of the 4 phase in your career, and amazingly that you opened the chapter 4 is the SB Global LLC, your own company, sharing the practice, the speak, and we wanna ask about the future a little bit. Is there anything exciting that you're working on you want to share with us so that we can celebrate with you in advance?
Wonderful. Well, I shared with you, obviously, I have the great books that I'm working on that will be coming out. One of the other things is I'm going to be speaking at an amazing conference. I think it will already be passed by the time this airs, but it takes place in Saudi Arabia in March. It's called Leap 24. They do it every year. It's one of the global premier events. It's got like 20 different technology tracks. It's got space, it's got investors, it's got entrepreneurship, it's got AI, it's got healthcare. And there's over 170,000 people that are coming, and I'm honored to be one of the speakers that will be there. So that will be an exciting event that's taking place in just a couple weeks. And then I've been invited to speak at some other events coming up over the year in other countries. So I will keep you posted. And as you know, I'm very prolific on LinkedIn. So hopefully you and your followers will continue to follow me. And now we're family. So, you know, I'm always here in America. I have family in Vietnam now. So that's one of the big things. And then again, we hope the book will come out later. The first book of the series will come out later this year.
Wow, exciting for you. So have a safe trip to Saudi Arabia, right? And enjoy that one. Give your best, and I know you're gonna rock the stage. So Shelly, thanks a lot for being so kind to join our program and share your stories. I really thankful for knowing you, for connecting with you, and learning from you. I hope all the best to you, to your family, and I really wish that one day we're gonna be able to give each other a big hug in person whenever in Vietnam or we travel to the US. Okay.
Absolutely. And until that day, I look forward to seeing you around the galaxy.
Thank you very much. You have a beautiful evening, and say hello to your family first, please.
I shall. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Bye bye for now.